Under the heading of flow control, there are two broad topics that we've discussed. The first is branching, when the interpreter makes one choice or another depending on some condition. And we saw that in the context of if, elif, and else. The second type of flow control we've discussed is looping, where a block of code might be repeated several times. We saw the while loop, which repeats until a condition is met. And now we'll see the for loop, which loops through each item of an iterable. Of course, that begs the question, what is an iterable? We need to talk about that before we can talk about the for loop. An iterable is a Python object that contains or generates a sequence of objects and can deliver them one at a time. We've seen one example already. We were careful to call a string a sequence of objects, and a string already contains other objects, the characters that make up the sequence. And we will see a function called range that doesn't contain any objects, but it can generate an arbitrary number of objects depending on some rule. We're going to use range a lot, and we'll explore that today. There are many, many iterables in Python, and we can even create our own. As we go through the class, we'll find more. For now, let's go back and talk about strings. We'll create a string, the cat jumped over the lazy dog, and a variable named myString to refer to that string. And we'll just demonstrate that we can print out the whole string, or we can print out individual characters of the string. We do that by using the index operator, which is a pair of square brackets, and putting a number inside. Usually in computer science we start with 0 to refer to the first position of something. So if we print out myString 0, we should see the letter T. And you may remember that we can refer to the last position of a sequence by using a negative index. So what do we expect? We expect this to print out the whole string, the cat jumped over the lazy dog, and then print the first character of the string, the capital T, and then the last character of the string, the final G. Let's cross our fingers and run the program. And in fact, that's what we see. First the full string, then the first character, then the last character. If we wanted to print out the whole string one character at a time, we could do that just by indexing each individual position in the string. And that's fun, but it's a lot of work, and we think there must be a better way to do this. And there is. I mentioned that a string is an iterable. It's a sequence of characters that can be delivered one at a time. So what we need to do is figure out how to construct a loop that iterates over this string. Whenever you're thinking of iterating over something, you should think of the for loop. Let's see how that works. We use the keyword for, and we're usually going to identify two different variables. The first one will be a new variable. Let's call it character. And the second one will be some kind of iterable, like myString, and a colon to indicate that we're going to have a code block that we want to loop over. Let's finish this up before talking about it. That's all the code. We'll run it. And we find in the run menu that it did exactly what we wanted. It printed out the string one character at a time. So how did that happen? Well, let's go back up and look at the for loop. MyString is an iterable. We said that it's a collection of characters that can deliver one character at a time. And that's exactly what the for loop is doing. The for loop asks MyString for its very first item, which is a character T, and then assigns the variable character to that item, T. So on the first iteration of the for loop, character refers to T, and that's what gets printed out in the run menu. After that iteration is complete, we jump back up to the for loop and ask MyString for the next item. The next item is H. Character now refers to H, so we print out an H. We come to the end of the for block, so we jump back up to for and do it again. And MyString keeps delivering characters until it runs out. Then it signals to the for loop that it's out of characters, and control can then pass on to the next line. So we see that the words "I am done" do not appear in the run window until MyString has delivered its very last character. So that's the for loop in a nutshell. It's really useful. And just like the while loop, we can use break and continue in the for loop. Maybe we want to print out my string, but we want to leave out all the e's. First, let's get my string all printing on one line again. Do you remember the argument we used to change the behavior of the print function after it prints out its message? It was end, and we can set end to an empty string if we later want to continue printing on the same line. Remember, the normal behavior is for the print function to print a new line character at the end of its message, causing the next message to be printed on the next line. But this way, the printing will continue on the same line. Let's see what happens. Pretty good. Of course, at the very end of the loop, we are still missing a new line character, so the next message got printed on the same line. There are a couple of ways we could fix that. We could add an empty print function here, because that one will just print a new line character. Or we can add a special character \n inside the string that's going to print, and \n will automatically print the new line character before printing the message in the statement. You can use either one. So now we came up with a really complicated way to print a string. But remember, we wanted to do something special with this. So we'll do some branching here. We'll say if character equals E, continue. And do you remember what that does? When control of the program hits this continue keyword, it says, hey, I need to stop here. I'm not going to execute any more statements in this iteration of the loop, but I'll jump back up and start the next one. So if we were here in the loop on this E, and we come to the if block that says if character equals E, continue, we'll jump back up without printing out the E, and then grab the next character, which is a D. Let's see that in action. There we go. That's our string without any E's printed. And then, just for fun, let's say we really don't like Z's, and if we ever encounter a Z, we want to just stop and break out of the loop. We'll add a second branching statement that says if we ever encounter a Z, let's just break. And remember that the break keyword means that we're going to stop the loop. We're not going to jump back up to the top, but we're going to completely exit the loop as if we had finished. Let's run this. And we notice that even though my string is not done delivering its items, we're breaking out of the loop as soon as we encounter a Z, so we don't print the rest of the string. For completeness, we need to talk about a little-known feature of the for loop, and that's the else block. Let's try the keyword else here. And if we run our program as written, we see our original string print, our edited string, and then I am done. But we never got the message, I printed the whole string, which is appropriate because it didn't print the whole string. Because we hit a break statement and broke out of the loop, the else block was skipped. If we do in fact finish to where my string has delivered every one of its items, and we never encounter a break statement, then the else block is executed. Let's try that by changing this to a capital Z. There's no capital Z in the string, so we should never hit this break statement. We'll clean this up with a new line character, run the program, and our program got through the entire string, never hit the break statement, so it printed out the material in the else block. Like I say, this is a little known feature of Python. You might never see it, but it is useful, and there's always the chance that this will come up in an interview. And now you know pretty much everything there is to know about for loops. We have a for block, we've used the continue and break statement, and we've added an else block. To really take advantage of for loops, we need to know more about iterables. Hopefully you have a good handle now on what an iterable does. Let's explore another iterable. We'll remove the bits about the string, change character to number, and introduce the range function. Range is an iterable that delivers a sequence of objects based on some rule. In the simplest case, there's just a single number inside the parentheses, and range will deliver the integers from 0 up to but not including this number. Let's watch that work. Indeed, we see that range printed 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and because it did complete the loop without hitting a break statement, the else block was executed as well. We can specify the starting number for range. By default, it's 0. This should give us the same result, but we can change it to maybe 5. So we start counting with 5, and we stop counting right before 10. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we have the start position, the stop position, and we have another possible argument called step. If we put in 2 for step, this will count by 2's. So we would expect this to print out 5, 7, and then 9. And that's what it does. We can also go backwards. Let's go from 10 to 0, stepping by -2. And this time we do print out the number 10 because remember the initial value is printed out, and we print out 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, but not 0 because the final number is never delivered by the range function. Let's expand this a bit just to print out all the even numbers from 0 to 30 and just demonstrate continue once again. Remember what the percent does? We'll add a space in here to make the output a little prettier. And we get 2, 4, 8, 10, 14, 16, 20, 21, 26, 28. That's puzzling. We're missing 6, 12, 18, 24. So this if block here found the modulus of number and 3, meaning it found the remainder when number is divided by 3. And if the remainder is 0, we hit a continue statement. The continue statement never allows control to pass to the print function, but instead jumps back up to the for loop and asks for the next number in range. So if any of these even numbers are also divisible by 3, we're not going to print them out. And of course we can add some condition that's going to prematurely stop the loop. This doesn't make much sense. We could just as easily stop the range at 14, but I just want to demonstrate that this works. We printed 2, 4. We skipped 6 because it's divisible by 3, so we hit the continue statement and control jumped back up to the start of the loop. Then we went to 8, 10, skipped 12, and when we got to 14, we hit the break statement. Because we broke out of this loop, rather than ending it naturally, the else block was never executed, and we just see the final message, I am done. There's a lot you can do with the for loop and the range function, but later in the class we'll learn some more iterables that'll make this even more useful.